Okay, let's just finally look at some training concepts and training devices here. If you want to have more realistic firearm defense training, you need to start incorporating more realistic equipment. That being said though, we want to put it in the proper context and make sure you're doing the right kind of training at the right time. Basically, you can get all kinds of replicas now, all the way up to functional airsoft pistols, which are one of the most valuable things. But you don't need these to start with, and I'm going to explain why in a second, why you don't want to start with something this realistic. You know, a simple piece of wood or rubber is fine. At some point though, you need to get into something harder that's going to have more resistance. The way that a rubber pistol responds isn't the same. But when you begin your first few hundred, your first few thousand reps, you're just really talking about muscle memory. It's not necessary to start putting in higher levels of realism, because you're going to be missing, you're going to be making mistakes. So even if you have access to something like this is a really good trainer because it's partially metal. It's got a metal slide and it's designed very much like an actual firearm. The problem with this is it's designed very much like an actual firearm. For example, the front sight is quite small and quite sharp, like it would be on the real deal. If you're just learning this technique and you're constantly grabbing here, you're going to be slicing up your hands and things like that. So I don't recommend using a metal one early on. They're harder. You can get your skin pinched in here a little bit. I mean, it's not a big deal, but for the first few thousand reps, you want to use a nice, soft, simple rubber trainer just to start getting the muscle memory going. You don't want to look down the actual barrel and get your heart rate going up. You want to have a relaxed experience for at least your first 500 or 1,000 reps. As you move on, these two are pretty much the same, but one's a harder plastic, so again, this is more forgiving, it's easier. These things are important when you're doing high reps. You can't be slicing your hand up on the first 20 reps and not want to train anymore, because at high speed, these kind of realistic metal trainers will slice your hands up, so avoid them. As you go from here though, there's a lot of give in the plastic trainer. This kind of rubber, this is a molded one, is an exact replica size-wise of a Beretta. So it's nice and realistic on a certain way. You'll see how your hand fits on it, but there's give in it at bend, so at a certain point it's comfortable to train with, but you don't want to use it forever. The next level are harder plastic. Again, these are good. You start adding another level of realism. The edges are a little harder. You're not going to injure yourself badly, but again, if you're doing thousands and thousands of reps, you're going to end up with a bruised hand. So get the difficult part out of the way first on nice, comfortable rubber trainers. Then once you're up to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 reps and you want to start adding realism, you can actually get airsofts that fire. These are magazine fed. They're very realistic. They have functional slides. And just be careful about the feet per second. So when you go to sporting goods stores and you look at things, see how many feet per second they shoot at. Somewhere around 250, 300 feet per second, they start becoming awfully uncomfortable. And if you're going up to 400 or 500, they're probably going to start breaking the skin. So you've got to play around with that. And most airsofts have them written right on the packages how fast they shoot, which is called feet per second, if you're not aware of that. And they'll say it right on the box. So having one that comes out and can show you if you got hit or not is important, but if you go too high, it becomes really painful, okay, to the point where it can be dangerous. So once you start actually firing airsoft pistols, you have to have eye safety wear, like anything, even when you're doing knife disarms and things, the chance of it flying past your face is always there. With airsoft, it's very high likelihood that you're going to catch you in the face. You must have wraparound eyewear, the same as you wear if you're on the paintball field. Okay? So again, to reiterate, realism is your ultimate goal, but also be careful that you don't start that way. I like this one because it's partially metal, so you can feel how the actual firearm is going to work. Another nice thing about this is it has a functional hammer, which means when I pull the trigger, the hammer drops. Unfortunately, these aren't that sophisticated. This gun will still fire because it's not an actual firearm. It has an internal pump. So even if I block the hammer, if the trigger gets pulled, it's still going to go off. But you can tell whether you would have stopped the hammer from dropping or not. The final level of these are competition grade airsoft pistols that use CO2. Generally, I've used them for training, but they are painful. They're getting up into the high feet per second. They can fire multiple times. They're very, very realistic, but they're also designed for field play, so they want maximum distance. They become really painful. You're gonna break your skin every time you get shot. And I've seen people get multiple shots in the head, and it isn't much fun after a while. But it's certainly every once in a while, if you want to pull out an actual competition-grade airsoft, man, does your stress level go up once you've got hit once in the head with one of those. You're going to have to peel it out of your skin, but it increases your heart rate. The trepidation is approaching the real thing because your body doesn't want to experience that. So every once in a while, once you've reached a sufficient level, you might want to try that from simple rubber to competition grade airsoft.